Alright, today we're going to be disassembling a Shirogorov. This happens to be a 95 series, but the Haiti and the 95, the F3, F3R, they're all fairly similar. But anyway, we're just going to be disassembling and reassembling. No maintenance, nothing like that. Just showing you how to take the knife apart and put it back together. I've already taken out the pivot screw and the body screw. I have a little tool that I use for that. What you're going to need, other than the tool or a coin or whatever you use to disassemble your Shirogorov, you need some tweezers. These are Swiss Army knife tweezers. They're really cheap. You can get a whole bag of them on Amazon for really cheap. And a toothpick from the same company, just in case the bearings get stuck in the cages. Now, these knives, they say caged bearings. They are caged, but until I had messed with one of this brand of knife, I had only seen caged, and that also meant captured. So the bearings were held in place within the cage. Now on Shirogorov knives, they are caged, but they are not captured. So if you try to take them apart and you do it incorrectly, the bearings will go everywhere, which happened to me my first time, because like I said, I had no idea. But anyway, hopefully this video will shed some light on that. You can go from there. Alright, first you're going to need, I disassemble the knife in a Tupperware, plastic, Rubbermaid, whatever it is, container. It's fairly wide and fairly deep. It has a tall lip. I just lower the knife down into it, and since the screws are both out, I'm going to gently disengage this side. May have to open the blade to do it. Let's see. I think I got it. Alright, now the show side is off. There you go. There's the internal of the show side. There's the little races for the bearings. This little silver race will come out, so just be aware of that. If it does happen, it just pops right back in. These are clean. I do run my bearings dry, so for the most part they stay clean, but if they don't, I will use alcohol. I'll get a paper towel and wad it up and soak it in alcohol and run around these races, as well as on the blade where the detent track is. I will clean that area and the blade tang, as well as the detent and the lock bar insert. Alright, here's a cage. If you look closely, there's what it looks like. I believe there's 21 on each side ball bearings. There are 3 little, in each little section there's 3 different ball bearings. Alright, now I'm just going to dump this. You want to get the knife as low to the surface you're dropping them on as you can, because they will bounce and they'll go everywhere if you do that. So there we go. That's the first side. Now gently take the blade, lower the blade back down, and let's get it loose. Make sure there are no balls stuck to the blade, which will happen, especially if you use lubrication. They come from the factory with, I believe, grease, so they will stick to almost anything. The blade, especially. So it's fairly clean, like I said, and the balls, the bearing balls, I do leave unlubricated. So this is the only place where I lubricate on the blade, is the detent track, and I don't put a drop of oil. I put it right on the blade. I put it on my finger, then run it down. That way I don't use any excess. extremely small drop. And same thing with the pivot. So the pivot and this is the only thing I'll oil on a bearing knife, any of my bearing knives. It doesn't matter if it's Shirogorov or whatever. Alright, there we go. We had a bearing in the female pivot side. Bearings will get caught in this female pivot side, so be aware of that. Tap it close to the surface you're dropping them on, just to make sure any don't get stuck in there. And set that to the side. Here's the clip side. You see its cage is seated with all the bearings into its race. Little recessed area. We're just gonna put it as low as it will go and then dump it out. There we go. This one's clean as well. Make sure that's clean. If it's not, like I said, just take some alcohol on a paper towel or Q-tip, whatever, and just rub that down, rub this down, clean out any gunk. So now we have our cages and bearings both in the same container. Since mine are unlubricated, they come out fairly easily. See, there's no more bearings in that cage. I'm just gonna set it to the side. No more bearings in this cage, set it to the side. Like I said, if you put any lubrication at all, it doesn't matter how thick or thin, or it's the factory grease, they will get stuck in there, and you will have to use a Q-tip or something to get them out of the cages. And it was actually recommended to me by Tom, one of the Shirogorov reps, to run their bearings dry. He says that that's the optimal way to run them. But if you feel like you get a smoother action, you can always use a small amount of lubrication on the bearings as well. It's just user preference, but I prefer to run, well, I don't have any bearing knives I put oil on. The only thing I put lubrication on is washers, and I use a Teflon, fluorinated Teflon grease on those. So if these needed to be cleaned, which I did this yesterday, I would just simply put the cages on this side, have the ball bearings all on this side, and dump a bunch of alcohol in here and put those to the side and soak them while I clean the rest of the knife with alcohol. But since they're clean, I'm just simply going to drop them onto this clean paper towel. Now if you try to dump it on something that's hard, like this Kydex tray or a table, anything like that that's not going to absorb the kinetic energy of them dropping, they're going to go everywhere. So that's one of the main reasons I use these paper towels. And try to get as lint free as possible. These are a commercial grade paper towel. The brand name is Wypal, W-Y-P-A-L. And there's very little lint that I've found with these. Once they start getting worn down, you'll start having issues. But when they're like this, there's literally no lint. Alright, just to make it easier, I like grouping them together. Now we're going to take the clip side, grab one of the cages, and drop it down in there. Now I have found that it's easier to go ahead and put the pivot and the stop pin back in if you did take it out to clean it. Simply because sometimes when you try to put this back in and you already have the ball bearings back into the cage, you might jolt it or shake it a little bit and some of the balls might come out. But if you do it like this, you don't have to worry about that. So let's make sure we have the cage over the medium, so if I do drop any, they go back onto the paper towel and don't roll very far or bounce. Now this is where a little bit of patience is needed, because, like I said, I think there's 21 of these, and you basically have to do them one by one. Oh. And these tweezers do take a little bit of getting used to. They have they're particular about the amount of pressure that you use to get them to grab the balls every time. I know I keep talking about balls. I'm sorry. You know, I mean bearings. Don't even go there. Now these bearings are upgraded. These aren't the Shirogorov bearings that came with the knife. And I've since upgraded all of my Shirogorov bearing knives to these bearings. They're made by Boca Bearings. I believe they're made in Florida. They are made of 440C hardened stainless steel, which the Shirogorov rep highly well, he advised to not use ceramic ball bearings, which I was going to upgrade to, but he strongly advised against that. He basically went into a long dissertation, which I'm not, I don't even know what he was talking about. I think he just wanted to talk or something. Maybe he needs a therapist. I don't know. All right, there we go. Didn't take too long. That's the female side, or clip side, whatever you want to call it. This is the same thing. Now we're going to take the blade and lock these into place. Be very careful not to cut yourself while doing this. Just go slow and use gentle pressure. There you go. They're locked into place. They're not going anywhere. So let's leave it at that. All right, now there are two methods of reassembling the show side cage. You can drop it in here and then put the bearings into that side, but then it requires that you flip over this whole setup. You have to flip it over, hold the blade in place without it slipping down, and align everything perfectly to get it in there. Since I've been doing this a while, I did that for a large amount of the time that I've been disassembling, reassembling, or maintaining my Shirogorov knives. But I've found that this method, placing the cage as close to where the runs are made from the bearings, is the easiest method. And then you just set this show side on top of there, as long as you have it centered correctly. It's very easy, much easier to do than the other method, at least in my opinion. All right, now you want to go slow with this. So we're no longer on the paper towel. I mean, I guess I could have moved it, but too late now. one did get in the center here. Let me try and wrestle him out real quick. Great. There we go. Last one, and he's being ornery with me. There we go. Alright, realign everything. Just try to get it as centered as possible around the pivot. Okay. Everything looks fine. Let's see if we can get this sucker on there. Got it. Perfect. This is so much easier than the other way. Yeah, I mean, after doing that for so long and then changing to this method, so much easier. You want to hold the pivot, align the body screw, female side, and push it through. Now put your finger right here and hold while you're pushing your thumb down to hold pressure on it. First thing I like to do is put the pivot screw back in, tighten it down all the way, and hold everything in place. We just spent, I don't even know how long, I didn't time this, but anyway, it took a while. You don't want it coming back apart. And then we do the body screw. Always be aware of where the blade's at. Now some models, when you screw the body screw in, they will come to a point where they stop. This one will not. And I've had a couple like this where it just spins freely. I guess if you feel uncomfortable with it, you could put a little bit of Loctite, but this is a newer knife and I'm breaking it in. So it gets broken down every time I carry it, which is, I carry a different knife every day, so maybe once a month. But anyway, just make sure everything's centered. That's with the pivot completely tightened down. Now what I like to do after that is, once it's been tightened all the way down, loosen it just a hair. Just a hair. There we go. Ooh, yeah. Fires out like a rocket and drops really, really nicely. Like I said, not even really broken in, and it's performing this well. So you wonder why people buy and spend so much on Shirogorov knives. Once you handle one, it's really hard to say anything bad about them. They're perfect. I mean, absolutely insane how good the action is. Anyway, here you go. If this was a cleaning video, I'd clean the blade at this point, but it is not. The knife has been disassembled. It's been reassembled. So I hope you have found that informative. If you would like to ask me any questions, go for it. I'll answer anything that I'm capable of. Otherwise, have a good day, good evening, good morning, wherever you're at. Whatever time it is, I hope it's going well for you. Thank you for watching.